Given the recent freezing weather across Europe, it's hard to believe that 2005 was one of the hottest years on record. Of course, one of the problems with global warming is that the decisions made now will have the greatest impact, not on us, but on future generations, and that could mean more extreme conditions. Our science correspondent David Shipman has been looking at the future and has two visions of what the world could look like in 100 years' time.
It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. I feel fine.
Is this a vision of the future? Well, scenes like this from the past year do look set to become more common in 100 years' time.
We're hearing a lot about climate change these days, but for many of us it all seems very gradual and very distant. Well, climate scientists have worked out that the world is due to warm up by between 2 and 6 degrees over the next 100 years. So, let's look at two possible scenarios for what that could mean for us and what we can do about it.
This is the first option, where high emissions of greenhouse gases continue, but high technology helps us deal with the effects.
Under this scenario, we just carry on as normal. We all love the car, for example, because let's face it, it's incredibly convenient. We all know that cars produce greenhouse gases, but most of us have got one, and many of us think they're essential. So you could take the view that if our activities are changing the climate, well, technology can provide an answer.
We desperately need to keep in perspective exactly what the car provides us with. It provides us with huge freedom, huge flexibility, and what we need to do as an industry is ensure that the products we deliver are as low carbon as they possibly can be, and that we as consumers use our vehicles, be they cars or vans, in the most environmentally responsible way.
The emerging giants like India and China are set to dominate the world economy, and they'll be pumping out greenhouse gases even faster than now.
We're going to see very high rates of emissions of greenhouse gases, and as a result temperatures are going to respond accordingly, and we'll see very high rates of climate change.
So under this scenario, we simply rely on bigger and better defences. If need be, we could copy the Dutch and build huge walls to hold back the rising sea. It is doable, but it's very expensive. We could also turn to new technologies like this to trap the greenhouse gases. This pilot system in the Sahara Desert captures carbon dioxide and pumps it deep underground. It's achievable, but is it the right way to go? The second option for our future is the alternative of moving to a greener world.
We're talking about pedal power taking over from petrol power, so that we use less fossil fuel, so that our everyday activities give off less greenhouse gas. That way, each of us could do our bit to prevent the worst effects of global warming.
We have to look at local economies, local market economies, where goods and services that are consumed are produced in that location or region. So we're not relying on the movement of goods and services around the world. We're really focusing on local production and local consumption. So in that respect, we'd really be looking at a world where we're not flying around so much, but goods and services aren't being moved around the world.
So imagine a future where the supermarket experience is a thing of the past. No longer would we expect to buy products flown in from distant lands at huge environmental cost. Instead, we'd think local. We'd do our shopping in markets, buying produce grown here, and we'd have to get used to not having the same range of choice. In our homes, we'd all be far more aware of our use of energy, maybe turning to solar power.
We all need to be participating in actions to help avoid the worst of it. And as has happened with recycling, I think if it's made easy for people to reduce their carbon dioxide emissions, they will go along with it. So, for example, when people go into the shop and buy a new washing machine, instead of being confronted with a whole range of products, some of which are very polluting and some of which are very clean, it should be the case that all they've got to choose between is the clean ones.
These items?
Checking in for cheap flights would be a thing of the past. No more mass flying producing greenhouse gases.
So, there's the green alternative, where we do decide to change our way of life for the sake of the future climate. On the other hand, there's the way of life we know and like. Ultimately, between these two, the choice is yours.